Hi guys, and welcome to Alistair Davies Golf. I'm here today at Reigate Hill Golf Club. I'm joined by Mark Bull, my friend, who's one of the top biomechanists in the golfing world. I'm very lucky to have him join me, and we're going to have a little discussion around how the pelvis moves, in particular in kind of the transition area of the golf swing. But Mark travels the kind of world working with elite players, elite coaches, and also everyman golfers as well, don't you? Your subjects will range from fairly novice golfers to world top 10.
I see them as human beings, not skills. So for me, they're just humans. So regardless of their skill levels, I just like working with humans.
And Mark also works with me. I'm very lucky to have Mark work with me for quite a number of days a year, and we work with my players at various levels, and we try and just essentially try and understand how they move and try and influence them to move in a more healthy way, and I would call it kind of a more beneficial way to make them perform better. But obviously there's lots of discussions around how people move and work and patterns and the systems.
Yep.
So today we're going to talk about the pelvis. So Mark, talk us through really, the key things that you like to see, if you like, with the pelvis in transition, and the common things you see that, if you like, cause concern or can cause issues around the pelvis in transition.
That's a nice question, Alison. I think you can kind of look at it in two ways. Are there movements you'd encourage to see, or are there movements you'd like to maybe the players avoid doing?
Yeah.
And excuse me, I would certainly say where my thoughts are more directed towards let's avoid certain patterns rather than encourage certain ones.
Yeah, because there's more than one way to do it successfully, right?
I'm undeniably right, and that's the way, you mentioned I'm very privileged and very lucky to spend time with some very good players, that for every player that moves that way, there'll be one that moves that way. So defining what a good, you mentioned the pelvis, good pelvis movement is very demanding, because that's the kind of question I have. But I think as far as are there movements you'd like to be very, very clear on avoiding? Absolutely, yes. And that mainly connects back to things like pain and injury, and then adaptation in other parts of the body to accommodate what the pelvis was doing elsewhere. So that was always been my approach to movement. That as far as refining and enhancing skill, in some ways go play with stuff, go and explore. That's the fun of movement. But as a certain pattern of movement, just be aware of that. And so if you're happy, if I kind of just maybe go through one this morning.
Yeah, definitely.
One of the more common ones I see, and the irony is this happens across all levels of existing skill levels, whether it be a new player or an established kind of recreational player, or even a highly successful player. One of the ones that often kind of makes me a little nervous as far as connecting back to pain and dysfunction would be that as they start with Anderson in transition, it may actually benefit your viewers out.
Yeah, I'll do it both ways if you like.
And how they move in transition, that the initial move the pelvis moves in is for that to elevate and move upwards, or it just depends how you wish to see the world. Another way of seeing that is that in transition, the left hip moves down and the right hip moves up alongside the rib cage moving that way. So perhaps the more intuitive way of describing that, perhaps for your viewers today, is that the bottom rib moves down and the top of the pelvis on the right side
shortens. The gap shortens.
Very much so. So that's one which, of all the movements I see around the pelvis, is the one that typically will kind of get my attention first, to say, hey, whoever you may be, player X, you need to be aware, avoid doing that. Why they move that way we'll come on to in a second. So things that you can look at with your students, and certainly what your viewers can play with as far as when they're doing their practice, is almost the influences behind, or some influences behind, why the pelvis is moving that way. But that would normally be the one area you'd say, I love variability, I love very independent, free-thinking people, I love very intuitive ways of seeing the world, but when you see that movement presented, it's not ideal, mainly around low right side of back pain, neck pain, and actually then to wrist pain because of what then happens further on through swing.
Yeah.
So one reason why players move in that way is something called the deep postural system. So it's the kind of muscular, or part of the muscular system that holds the frame up against gravity. It's essentially what gives the frame its shape, and really controls how kind of joints and levers move in just in movement. Often when that system's fatigued or maybe not as conditions it could be, players start using their big superficial muscles to try and achieve their movement. So an example being players get very overactive through here and often very underactive through here as a way of trying to achieve movement and rotation. So when these things in particular get very involved, and these things around here are slightly underactive in how we move, it can then lead to how the pelvis and rib cage and spine interact and move and transition. And as we kind of said at the start of this discussion, that typically when you see that, that would certainly get my attention very quickly.
Yeah, and obviously from my point of view, when I'm looking at that movement, I'll see all kinds of hand action to the golf ball that I'd really hate as a recovery almost, to try and make the shot work. And then obviously that brings in different pain issues within the wrist then, because the wrist will be overworking and going into massive kind of extension early and things like that as well.
Yeah, I would say then it's, I call it brain the world's best GPS, it knows where it needs to get to. And certainly, actually more so in more skilled players. So this is actually, actually can be more of a concern for being a skilled player now. So being skilled is not always good at sometimes. Let me explain that now. That skilled players are exceptionally aware and very, very, very good at finding impact, despite how things are moved in advance of impact. So if you give a very, very good player, for example, to a level, any kind of movements they wish through backswing, they know how to get here from here, because that GPS, that neural system that they have, is so very, very good at adapting. Certainly for some, and it is for some lesser skilled players, and this often then opens up the discussion around trying to improve how someone moves through backswing. How can that impact on impact can actually be very unharmful, because lesser skilled players occasionally haven't yet figured out or haven't yet correlated, well, how do I now get here if someone's now just asked me to move more that way than that way? To start with, they can't make that match. So although they may make an improvement through backswing when looking at backswing locally, it can have huge regression on impact, because they yet haven't quite figured out how do I create the match on impact from the new movement I have. So good players, going back to your question, sorry, often when you start to see this stuff in a very, very skilled player, they can start to create or find different ways of adapting to find impact, because they're very, very good. So therefore, when you start seeing things like pain through the wrist or pain through the neck, or even things on launch monitors as far as club delivery data, that can almost again be the frame after really how people move through it. And I actually call the pelvis to some, the pelvis is a bit like a second brain in the body. The pelvis is very, very good at moving or adapting when it knows it needs to adjust its position to achieve that task. So I'll get almost intuitively again, players will adapt how they move through here. So we're helping that, being the club head, get there.
Okay, so I guess a good thing players can do at home is if they try and just move the pelvis so the levels are better, so the right hip isn't getting and this isn't get short, as a dry drill would actually give them a feels for the good movement. And if they feel that their foot comes up early and they kind of side bend back, that's the kind of movement you kind of don't like.
Absolutely right. Almost in this discussion, I know it is golf. Ignore golf momentarily. What that makes the spine and other segments do, or get very upset with, typically with some. So any time the right side of that pelvis can stay down as it rotates, it's invariably only a good thing to have.
Okay, so again, if you were watching that and you saw how Mark moved there with his hand and these little drills, they would be great kettle drills, as I call them. So when you're boiling the kettle, do these kind of movements. Start to feel how your body should move in the right way. Work out if that feels a lot different to how you move normally.
Yeah, and I guess my guidance, around learning would be almost to do the existing one you have, do the new skill that you have, and just feedback to you what that means to you, and really how they answer that question is their way of understanding change.
So this is poor, this is good. Okay, well, what did I do differently?
Absolutely right. And then how they answer that question is the answer to that question.
Good. So hopefully you understand a bit more about the pelvis and how it should move, and more about what we don't want it to do, because what that can cause to your club data, ball flight, which is the big thing most of you are interested in, but also what it can cause from a point of view of your body and pain. Especially if you're doing a lot of reps or playing a lot of golf. When you're young and not doing a lot of reps, you won't feel a lot of pain, will you? But as you get older and do more reps, like me and you start to feel more pain then, don't you, Mark? Certainly I do. So hopefully if you've enjoyed the video, please click like down below. If you have any questions for myself or Mark, please post them in the comment box. And especially if any videos you want me to cover in the future. And also if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. I've got regular content coming every week. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for watching.